Good morning, everyone. It is January 20th, 2026. It's a cold one here in Michigan, 5 degrees, and it's only supposed to get colder throughout the week. Oh boy. Hope my pipes don't burst. That would be awful. But what we're actually going to talk about today, though, is not pipes bursting because it's cold, but the variables that influence longevity. Some of you might have one of these things, a fitness tracking watch, and it might give you something called a fitness age. And fitness age is determined by something called the VO₂ Max score. If you're big like me, well, not real big, but you work out, you're muscular, you are significantly heavier than most people of your height, it will give you a score that makes you think that you're a 65-year-old chain smoker cardiovascularly. And you're like, what the heck? I work out all the time. I do cardio. I lift weights. Why is my mortality or lifespan, whatever score, health span score, so low? What is going on here? And that's because it is using a particular data point called the VO₂ Max to predict your health score. And it's just one variable. And that's like having a Paladin versus a Scout. You're a Paladin, you're big, you're strong, you're very capable, you're healthy, and then you have a Scout who's also healthy, but they're small, they're slight, and they go all around and have all this endurance. There's basically like applying a formula meant for a Scout to a Paladin. It's not going to be correct. And so VO₂ Max is not necessarily the best predictor of longevity for people who are, power lifters, bodybuilders, they're manual laborers. It may not be the best one to predict your longevity. But there is a formula that takes more than the VO₂ Max into account, and that's called the Cox-Hazards model. And spoiler alert, I'll tell you what, my VO₂ Max score was wrong for my fitness age. So let's talk about some of these variables. I do want to talk first about VO₂ Max. VO₂ Max is a good variable for most people. And in fact, even if you are bigger, improving your VO₂ Max score is a good thing. The Cleveland Clinic in 2018 found that VO₂ Max was the strongest predictor of lifespan. So, it's S tier. It is the primary predictor, and that's why the watches predict your fitness age based solely on VO₂ Max. But it's like IQ. You have an IQ score, and that can tell you something about your intelligence, but that doesn't tell you about your success. And if you use your IQ to predict your success, you're going to find that it does predict success, but not as much as not the only variable that predicts success. There's a lot of other variables that go into it, and sometimes you can have an high IQ score and not be very successful at all. But when we look at the VO₂ Max, we have to consider that the formula is your oxygen consumption divided by your body weight. And because the denominator is your body weight, the higher your body weight goes, the lower your VO₂ Max score goes. So that tilts the score to be higher for people who are lighter, just naturally. And the assumption is that all mass, fat, muscle consumes oxygen, which is true. However, this has been known for a long time, since at least 1981. Muscle mass is a metabolic sink. It helps prevent tons of metabolic diseases like diabetes. It helps prevent heart disease. So muscle mass is extremely valuable. And if we look at an analogy with cars, if we take a Prius, light car, great miles per gallon, high VO₂ score, and we take an F-350 hauling a house, its miles per gallon is going to be terrible. Does that mean the F350 has a bad engine? No, this is built for different things. And it's the same thing with VO₂ Max compared to your build. You're built for different things. Someone like me, I'm built to lift heavy. I'm built for explosive strength. I am not built for long-term jogging. In fact, I hate jogging, and doing the VO₂ Max test was awful. I hated it. And it's not because my cardio couldn't handle it. It's just like I was getting cramped up in my legs. It was terrible. It was painful, and I had to push myself through the whole thing to jog it. So another one that we have that we can consider for longevity, and this is a great predictor, is grip strength. So this is one of my Captains of Crush grippers. Got a couple more here. That's my, if you want to see, that's my Captains of Crush 2. This is 195 pounds of force. Keep that in mind. So, grip strength is the queen. If VO₂ Max is the king, queen is grip strength. It is almost as good of a predictor of all-cause mortality than VO₂ Max. In 2015, 140,000 people were studied with their grip strength and found that grip is a better predictor of cardiac health than even blood pressure. Why? It tests your systemic integrity. In order to grip something that strongly, it requires strength, it requires a sound cardiovascular system, and it requires that you're able to recruit a number of motor neurons throughout your body in order to get that thing closed. So for bigger people, that is probably a better metric than VO₂ Max. And it acts as a risk shield even if your VO₂ Max is not very high. Then we have a couple more variables, and one of those is your resting heart rate. This is how you idle, your stroke volume. And if you have a low resting heart rate and you don't have anything like dizziness or fatigue or anything like that, that means you have an endurance athlete's heart. And my resting heart rate happens to be 48 beats per minute, which is very good. It's elite. So I have elite grip strength, elite resting heart rate, and then you have heart rate recovery. And that's after you push your heart to load, how quickly does it come back down? So for me, if I'm pushing cardio and I get up to 140, 145 beats per minute, which is incredibly hard for me, I have a tough time hitting my 85% of my max heart rate. It's very difficult, and the 145 is not there. But I can get it to 145, and when I do that for a couple of minutes, and then if I just completely stop the exercise, my heart rate within the first 30 seconds to a minute will usually drop 30 to 40 beats. And that's excellent. Again, top tier heart rate recovery. So I have top tier heart rate recovery, top tier grip strength, top tier resting heart rate, and I have average VO₂ Max. You plug them into a formula, a Cox formula at least, and guess what? I'm a couple standard deviations above the high category for health, for fitness metrics. And so what this tells me is that not that VO₂ Max is a bad score, it is still S tier. And as I continue to do more and more cardio in my routine, it will improve. I don't think I'm ever going to get to the elite tier in VO₂ Max just because of my body composition and my fitness goals. I'm training for things like powerlifting and strongman, so I need to have that muscle mass, and I'm not willing to drop down to 180, 170 pounds just to see an improvement in my VO₂ Max score when the other metrics are really good. So in closing, if you're a big guy, ignore your watch's fitness age unless it takes into account all these variables. If you really want to know how healthy you are, also know your resting heart rate, your blood pressure, your grip strength, your heart rate recovery, and don't just rely on one metric like the VO2 max. Until next vlog, goodbye.